Hello, everybody. It's me, Dia Dynasty, one half of La Maison de Rouge. My other half, Lucy Sweetkill, is taking the night off. Um, and it's so lovely to have this space to be able to connect with all of you and to bring in different people that are involved in the BDSM community in some capacity and to hear their stories and have them share themselves with us. So thank you for tuning in and for being here Monday after Monday. Hi, Sadly. So tonight we have the lovely Jade Thunderstorm. Mistress Jade Thunderstorm is a New Orleans-based professional dominatrix. Jade is a self-taught lifelong sadist, role-play enthusiast, artist, writer, and tarot intuitive. Jade has been providing professional experiences as a dominant for the last 10 years, traveling back and forth between Seattle, Washington, and New Orleans. Jade is the mother of Dungeon Storm Cloud, a play space for other professionals, and her practice is rooted in a liberatory framework that prioritizes joy and embodies authentic sexual expression and blends elements of her spiritual tarot practice. Hi, David. So good to see you guys, and it's so great to have Jade here join us tonight. Here she is. Hi, Jade. Hello. How is New Orleans?
It's an interesting place to be right now, post hurricane. The garbage is still not on a regular schedule, so it's very stinky and very hot. New Orleans is here, and New Orleans is a place where people really come together, and people are just taking care of each other. So that's how New Orleans is that people are forever coming together around disaster.
Yeah.
Any disaster all the time. And there's no other place I want to be in the world, honestly. So I'm happy to be here. It's sweaty, it's hot, sometimes it's stinky, and it's such a wonderful, beautiful, swampy place to be.
It adds to the ambiance, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It absolutely does.
Well, it's so great to have you. How are you tonight?
I'm doing really well. I spent the day just puttering around the house, puttering around the garden, running the dogs, just kind of my basic Monday, which is just having the longest morning I could possibly have, which is usually like 6 a.m. to noon. I need to be alone.
Yes.
And then after that, I do my computer work and do other things. But yeah,
Awesome.
I'm having a great, normal, easy day.
Yeah, it sounds like the best way to spend a Monday, because Mondays are always like, everybody's coming back from the weekend and they're trying to catch up with things, and it's the awful day, and I think it's really important to just kind of take Monday at your own pace.
I agree, and that's like such a luxury of doing what I do.
Yes.
Everything my own pace, and it's like a great Tuesday's kind of like when I actually start my week. Monday is like preparing to start my week, and Tuesday is when I actually start my week.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like a good way to do the week.
Absolutely.
Hello to all of you who are just now joining us. So good to have you. So we're going to start the interview section, and I want to remind everybody to politely hold your questions until after the interview segment. And if you just have a burning desire and you can't wait, just, you're going to have to, you can put it in the chat box, but we probably won't answer it until after the interview segment. And it may just get answered anyway. So you just, be patient. So Jade, can we start chronologically, and can you tell us one of your first kinky experiences, whether it was sexual or not?
Okay, yeah, my very first kinky experience, which was not sexual, I was in preschool. I had a really good friend named Eddie, who I thought was really, really quite wonderful. And we did everything together. And then one day I just like had this hockey stick in my hand, and we were on like the like playhouse thing, and I just saw his hand there, and I had this insane urge just to hit his hand. It's a hockey stick. And then I did. And then I was like, so I don't know. It's really burned in my brain, this whole actual memory. And I remember doing it and feeling so good until I saw him crying. And then I was like, oh my God, why did it? And, you know, like in my very preschool mind was like, I hurt my friend, but it felt so confusing.
Yeah, it sounds really confusing.
Of like, I don't know why that felt good and also felt really bad. And now my friend doesn't like me. And I had a lot of those moments as a child, and a lot of those moments like trying to figure out what that meant until I, you know, got to be a teenager. And then I kind of understood that because I ended up being a punk, and like being a punk like give like it's like very imbued, like punk and like fetish and kink and leather and queerness like all kind of went hand in hand, like
Yeah.
whenever it started, you know, from when this beginning till now, you know, it's like continuous.
Yeah.
So that was like a big access point for like fetish and queer and kink, was like being a punk rocker. And yeah, and like the music and music videos and all that stuff that like, well, not music videos to the extent that it was available like on like MTV or something, which for, you know, but pre what MTV is now, which I don't really exactly know what it is anymore. Like we had NVH1 and MTV had actual music videos and like, stuff like that.
I remember those days.
Yeah, like the after hours, like that's what I would do. Is like I also was like have been an insomniac my whole life. So like after hours MTV or after hours VH1 was like we're all like the punk things were, or like things that like were exciting.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like how that like actual like the formation of like the understanding of BDSM and kink and the tools and the look and everything like came from, was like starting with like wearing fetish clothes as a punk as a teenager and experimenting with that and like looking for that aesthetic and like like researching it kind of voraciously, like through books and through like punk old like magazines and through like going to the library and having to look things up, because I didn't grow up with the internet at like I'm 37, so like I didn't have like, I still had to go to the record store and I had to go like find zines or magazines or go to the library and like look things up or piece things together. I like specifically remember like I specifically remember getting into like To 7 Year Bitch based on the cover on the CD, and then like buying that CD as a kid with like the little bit of allowance I got, which was my lunch money, and I just didn't eat lunch, but I just like bought acid and CDs. But
CDs were expensive back then.
They were really expensive. They were like $20 for a CD. That's like a lot of lunch money.
Yeah, it's way more than I got
for lunch money, like a day, and that was it. And that like bought me a slice of pizza, and that's it, pretty much at school. Anyways, like in high school, so yeah, like I bought that 7 Year Bitch, and then I saw that like in the back they had like a Mia Zapata for the Gits, like rest in peace. And so I looked up the Gits based on that, and then Mia Zapata in that was wearing a Neurosis shirt, and then I was like, okay, I can go look up that. And you know, it was like kind of like this chain of events where I just followed all these bands and all these things to BDSM.
Yeah. So So what? Okay. Do you remember exactly what brought you to BDSM? Like where you connected that dot that went from hitting your friend with the hockey stick to what it actually is called. Like it's called sadism.
Well, again, through punk and like understanding, like, you know, when you're like in middle school, I discovered the Sex Pistols and like started reading history of like that like punk from in Europe, and like understand, like hearing about why the aesthetic was blended, you know. And so going from that, and then like understanding kind of also like in high school being pegged for being obviously a weirdo, and everyone's boyfriend secretly hit me up to be like wear my panties and to like have me put things in their butt. And that's where it started. And I was like, oh, this is this is what's up. This is how it's happened. And there you go. And those same football players are still visiting me, probably technically. I mean, that's just like the spectrum of like what my sexuality was part of that. And also, you know, going backwards just a little bit was like, just a little bit is like being forced out of the closet in 7th grade. That was like the turning point of like, I'm different.
Oh.
And then the following year became punk. Like after being outed, everyone yelling, I'm a gay girl in the cafeteria all at once in 7th grade, being emotionally destroyed, and then rising from the ashes in 8th grade as a punk and being like, I don't care. So what? You know, it's like, and then progressing through like high school, all through high school, being that person that people sought out based on the way I looked to explore, and then going from there.
Wow.
Yeah, it was an interesting way to start out being a dominant.
Yeah. So did you find that your sexuality was almost like liberated when you were outed?
Yeah, in a way, it was a little confusing because I didn't even read myself as that. The girl that I was like, I didn't even know I was having sex, honestly. Like, you know, like I just like we were doing the things that you do. I get like to have sex, like have gay sex, but in my mind, like in 7th grade, that I just wasn't perceiving that, you know.
Yeah.
And but she outed me, and then I was like, I guess I am. That makes sense because I didn't have language. I also grew up in a Catholic household, so add that to the
Wow.
mix. And yeah, so like all those things created this synthesis of like sexual self discovery, and like also it gave me a like permission in a way, because I had to stop caring at a young age what other people thought of me, because like what do you do after that, after everyone screams you're gay in the cafeteria when you're in 7th grade?
Oh, wow. And you didn't really let that stop you from just being who you were. You kind of saw it as like almost like a platform.
Absolutely not. I've always been like you know, the thing about being a dominatrix for me is like it's been a professional dominatrix for me is it's been like this really great way for me to filter my really intense ego. My ex-husband said I have an ego that can fill a room, and that can be very true about me. Can be. I want to say can be. But I have always been confident, and like even in that moment I was just like, this is so fucked up that people are just disrespecting me. Like I don't understand like why I'm being disrespected, because I don't have this image of myself that other people were trying to put upon me. So like that was a source of like a point of liberation of being like, well, I guess if everyone's going to treat me like shit, I'm just going to do whatever I want and explore however I feel necessary.
Yeah, that's so awesome that you didn't internalize any of the shaming that they were doing or they were trying to do to you. And
yeah, it just really never stuck. Like I was like also like one of the only brown kids in my school from like 2nd grade on. Like I went from like being around a lot of like black and brown kids to like suddenly moving and then not. And like so like, and I just like never understood like why I was being treated different all the time. Like so I feel really lucky in the sense that like that sense of shame kind of never stuck with me, or that sense of like questioning myself or something.
Yeah.
Feel lucky about, like, despite everything, my confidence like remained intact. So knock on wood.
Yeah, that's so, I mean, I don't know if that's a lucky thing or if that's a thing that happens when you have a good family to kind of like instill you with a sense of, you know, righteousness in who you are.
That's definitely one thing. You know, family was severe. My family is really severe. I come from like a really traditional Mexican family, and it was intense upbringing, and also, my mom really, and my grandmother and my aunts really just instilled in me like a sense of like, you're important. Like, don't let anyone walk all over you. Like my mom used to always say, "No te dejas, mija," which means like, don't let people treat you like trash, you know?
Yeah.
And that was always said to me.
Oh, That
Like, don't
is,
people treat you like trash. And so I feel pretty lucky that I got that like really nailed into my head that like no one's allowed to treat me badly.
yeah, that was definitely not something that a lot of people that I know grew up with. I mean, we kind of, it wasn't that we were told we were trash. It was just that we didn't necessarily receive that kind of like fortification of the self. And I think that that makes a big difference, when you grow up and there's opposing factors and violent opposition to who you really are.
There was
So,
that in the house too.
oh yeah.
But it was like a really mixed message, and I just kind of cherry picked what I liked, and then the rest of it I was like, no.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, it stuck though, that
It's stuff. Yeah.
what your mom said, it really stuck, and even
And
she couldn't bring it down.
she's wonderful, and she believes that in herself too. Like she doesn't let people bring her down either. She's a really like tough and smart and brilliant like Scorpio Mexican mom.
Yes.
Yeah.
So can we talk about how you made your way into the professional realm as a dominatrix?
Oh my goodness, I just kind of stumbled into it, honestly. Like in this like I had a friend who was just like, I'm going to, do this thing, which was like, I'm going to try to be a dominatrix. I need to make some money. And at the time, I, was like 26, 27, somewhere in there. My sense of time is so strange.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, oh, I want to do that too. Like at the time I was a social worker, and you don't make very much being a social worker. It basically like you live paycheck to paycheck, and I was exhausted with that. I was exhausted with like not like having the things I needed. And like again, being a punk, I was like, cool. I like want like I can dumpster dive, and I like know how to like be really scrappy and pull things together, and like and have like make a life out of trash, But at a certain point, I was just like getting tired of it, where I was like, I've been broke my whole life. I'm always making do, and maybe it would be nice to have to not make do all of the time. So that was kind of like how I stumbled into it, was like being interested in money, honestly. And then also being like, I know how to do this stuff already because of like my journey thus far, I know what to do mostly. And so, yeah, it happened so fast. And again, it wasn't like a plan. It just like one day my friend brought it to me. The next week we were taking photos, and then like the next week I posted an ad on Backpage. And,
right.
And like Craigslist, and that's how it started.
Yeah, it was so much easier back then, I guess you could say, because it wasn't like a very saturated market either.
No, it really was. I started off in Seattle. I worked in Seattle, for the first half of my career, and it wasn't. There's like a lot of dominatrices in Seattle, and there was a lot of dominatrices working there, and who still are working there. That I also got to really learn a lot from. Also, like more specifically, like outside of just like the spanking and the pegging and like the very like very basic things. I got to like dive deeper in that was like my professional introduction, like made me dive deeper into more things I liked. But yeah, like it was definitely a lot easier. It was a lot easier to meet clients. It felt different. It just felt so different. And it's definitely moved from like I could post an ad and then like not look at the internet to like having to be more engaged with the screen, which is not something I necessarily love, but I'm learning to accept.
Yeah, it is. It is a part of our civilized life these days, I guess.
It's the one thing I do like about it is that like I like saw you and Lucy Sweetkill and like a lot of New York dominatrices doing like really special and amazing things. I saw Bay Area dominatrices that I also knew already, like doing really special things. Like I got to like expand. Like most of my friends are sex workers, and like that's also part of how stumbling into it was so easily. It's like part of the queer experience, And but like the internet did get to open up to like where I get to meet like some really special people and really extraordinary, like, people who are in this industry or even outside of the industry, but are like doing really amazing sexual revolutionary things. And that's the part I do like about it, is like having access to like expanding my like wheelhouse of knowledge and friends and like support.
Yeah, it's so much easier to do that now. You don't have to go to a physical store and like, buy a physical product and then search around on the physical product. Like with CDs, you found like somebody wearing a t-shirt in a photo, and then you go and like try to find what that t-shirt's about, or you had to like go to the magazine shop, or
That's
buy a physical magazine and like look up the ads or whatever. You could just go to a website now, and you can just go on social media and click through all the links now.
yeah. And it was the first time. So like my first session I ever did, I went, oh my gosh, it was so embarrassing. But like, okay, so like the many steps that happened was I met this older gentleman like at a coffee shop to do like my first screening by myself, and like I was wearing punk clothes, like, dental floss sewn thing.
Yeah.
Okay, why would I thought like I put on some makeup. That was like some lipstick and some mascara. Anyways, we made this date. I was gonna go to his house, but I had like really like no tools at all. So then I went to the crypt, which used to be in Seattle, but is no longer. And I was like, okay, he wants to do cock and ball torture. Can you show me what do I need to get? Like I just know how to like spank people, flog, yank people's hair, or like, use my body parts, or like some very basic tools, So that was just like diving in like that, and then like learning that first day. And it was so much fun. It was a really fun session. It was like, but I showed up in the most ridiculous outfit too, and at his house. Like it was also like being a sex worker has taken me from like not understanding what femininity was for myself, and like now I'm like super love being feminine and celebrating that. But the first time I showed up at this man's house, I was like in this like polka dot, like strapless, like dress, like kind of like rockabilly, like taffeta,
Yeah.
So and then I was like wearing like these like shiny patent leather heels, kind of, but like, and I was like, just like walking in this way. I looked like such a sore thumb, like sticking out, like waiting for this man to buzz me up to his building. And I was just like, did not know how to perform femininity at all. And like, he was such a good sport. And
oh my God. I could just see you, because you're actually describing my 8th grade dance outfit. And
that's what it looked like. That's what it looked like.
I love it. I love it so much.
They're really funny to reflect on, like from then to now. I didn't know I was going to do any of this.
Yeah. Yeah. and I did want to ask you, like, how have you refined your skills and your style throughout your career? Because I believe you've been doing this for about 10 years, right? Yeah.
How I honestly, like, the internet to help me was a big thing, like teaching myself and like having so many. I honestly like have had such amazing luck with submissives. I've had some submissives this entire time. Like I have people in Seattle that I still see that are 10 years later who don't really see anybody else but me,
Mm-hmm.
and like have been like, we're just so willing to let me experiment and willing to like play together and learn together and like have like a synthesis, and like they're like basically just saw my energy and were like, let's refine this together. And that's like how I got to like know more about like sounding or like electricity or like needles and like things like the more fine-tuned things that aren't just like impact play or bondage and
Mm-hmm.
things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of like a journey that I got to go on with like my clients that have just been pretty solid most of the time.
Yeah, and that's such a blessing, because you're still getting paid and you're having an experience with something that you actually like, and you're learning something new.
Yeah, so it was like, and then also like again being exposed, and I also have some really great like people in my like legacy in the last 10 years. I miss Mistress Ivy, who's an amazing dominatrix that I shared a space with for 10 years now 10 years. Harlow Leather and Lace in Seattle, also like amazing fetishist, really amazing friend, long-term friend, also like really walked me through this. My friend 6 foot Sadie, who like is now retired, also like I just have that. And then Domina Victoria Rage was just like such, also like such a wonderful like person who really like was always open to like answering my questions or like showing me things. And so there's just like there's so many of those folks in Seattle that have just been like a wealth of knowledge and like have been so open to like sharing knowledge and like helping people. And so that was like a really big thing, like getting introduced like through people with different styles who just
Yeah.
who were really willing to show me things. And that was super duper exciting. I don't know,
Yeah.
get to meet those kinds of people and people who are already in my community doing that. So, and then also, yeah, just being queer, being at events, being around my friends who are just doing insane shit all the time was also part of that legacy.
I think that's so important that, you know, to have community and to have like people who are elders in the community show us things, and then to pass those on to people once we become older, and to, like you said, you know, continue the legacy of what, you know, our what we think BDSM is. Because
Yeah.
it does kind of like morph over time, I think, but there is also a very essential core to what it is, and to be able to do that properly and safely, I think takes like a group of people, you know, to learn it and to teach it.
Takes
um,
a to raise a dominatrix.
yeah, totally. So speaking of style, I'm curious about your intuitive tarot practice and how you bring that into your personal practice.
Well, I mean, this is something that I've constantly relied on, like behind the scenes for, you know, for the last few, for like the last 13 years of my life. Like or 13 or 14 years, I've been reading tarot and like practicing and studying. And it's something that I also do professionally. Um, and it's just something that's always been behind the scenes in my session. It's like how I build sessions, or how I like beforehand, like have built sessions with like tarot cards and like the energy I want to work with, or like what's the energy of this client, like how am I going to work with this person. Like I've always just built my sessions behind closed doors. And you know, right before the pandemic hit, like that's when I started to like weave like it into sessions, or like offer it to my clients. Like I do tarot card readings beforehand for clients sometimes, like, at like when people want and ask. And I have been like weaving in like more of those things, because I am more in I'm more interested in like I'm deeply interested in the healing aspects of pain and pleasure and the body and embodiment and like spirituality and magic. And like I think that those are really important tools, because like they all touch. They all they all touch, and they all like inform the next thing for myself, like if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And
And it,
they're all a part of our being, you know, like the way that we are physical beings as well as mental, emotional beings and spiritual beings. And so a lot of times, you know, the spiritual aspect of our being gets overlooked because, you know, maybe some people dismiss spirituality or say, you know, oh, I'm not religious. And it's not about being religious. But it is about kind of like the more unseen forces that do drive our lives. And I think that, you know, when you honor and connect to those unseen forces, like through tarot, through intuition, through meditation, through whatever it is that, you know, whatever modality, there's a richness that comes from it.
yeah. And I also like specifically like archetypes. Like that's part of BDSM, is like archetypes, like the way that we like the dominant archetypes, the submissive archetypes, all the in between and gray spaces, and like how that like also really applies very beautifully to tarot, like, and to different things. Like even something as simple as like I like to think of like the Empress card as um, like expanding your threshold for more, to receive more, to like to hold more. And you know that could be really like I love how your little familiar just showed up as we
Yeah. she heard tarot and
yeah. But like that, and like how that is like, I don't know, like your asshole's a portal, you know, and like how that is a portal, and like that to expand and receive more, like very simply, like little and big connections like that. Like if I see that card and like, you know, how to like structure a tarot, how to structure like a scene like from that card is like, that's a very simple way in which I think of that. That makes sense? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Like, oh yeah, like the like the ability to like connect those archetypes to like a BDSM scene. And so like again, right before the pandemic started, I like started doing, you know, showcasing a little bit more of that online, and studying and connecting that more. And that's still kind of like, it's still ongoing, connecting tarot archetypes to BDSM scenes and like the different ways that we can use tarot to inform and like diversify sessions.
Yeah.
Like behind the scenes or with people, you know, it doesn't know, you know.
Can you just, sorry to back up a little bit, but just kind of give our audience members a brief description of what tarot cards are in case they don't know?
Tarot cards are a divination tool that originate from Roman people, and they embody like different archetypes, such as like the emperor or the empress or the magician or the fool or the king of swords, the queen of swords. They have like all kinds of things, and they also a lot of times embody, you know, different tarot cards have different different styles and things like that, but they embody like spiritual elements, you know, earth elements, earth, like fire, earth, water, air, all those things. And like one card can just contain so many like multitudes. I'm like doing a terrible job explaining this, but like, yeah, tarot
okay.
Cards, a tool of divination, and also a tool that you can use for creativity also, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So my experience with tarot cards is oftentimes if I have a question or I'm not clear on something, the tarot cards are a deck of cards. There's a set of major arcana and then minor arcana. And they have the major is like the greater archetypes, and then the minor has to do with, like you said, the more elemental things that represent like the earth represents our earthly, you know, matters like our home life and our money and
our body, our health, the things
right, our body, right, yeah. And then like the cups represents, or water represents our emotional life, etc. So
yeah, cards are like our like mental and our thinking life, and like kind of like the things that are happening in our head that we can't hold but are also very real, things we can't see that are real, you know.
Yes.
And the wands are our sexuality, our fire, our power, our creativity, our passion, you know.
Yeah, that's so true. And so these cards, you know, they all exist, and everything that they represent also exists within us. And so a lot of times the deck is an expression of like what we're feeling, thinking, being, but we don't necessarily have the clarity to see that. So we ask the cards to show us.
Yeah.
That's my
roadmap that we already have in our bodies that like illustrates more clearly. And I feel like it's a great tool for also embodiment. If, you know, you're stuck on like, I don't understand why I'm feeling this way, or I don't understand like why things are going this way, or why this communication is happening in this way. And like, nice little roadmap to be like, here are some potential answers to some of these questions, or some potential like guidance towards like moving forward and through difficult situations or not so difficult situations, you know?
Yeah. And tarot cards are very accessible, in my opinion. Also, like you could go to any like bookstore really and pick up a deck of tarot cards and kind of familiarize yourself with them. They do take a while to learn, you know, like most people will use some sort of like legend or book to decipher them for themselves. But that's one of the ways that you kind of learn tarot. So I think it's really fascinating that you bring in this spiritual component to you integrate this spiritual component into basically everything that you do, including your BDSM practice. And you said something that I really resonate with, is that the asshole is a portal.
It is.
Which I think is like, the spirit body connection there. Like, there's a lot of people might not see it that way, which is totally okay. But we were also talking about the internet being a portal. And so when we have these like portals, it's like whatever is on the other side of this portal might be unknown. But you have to be very specific in your intentions of what you want to call in through the portal.
Absolutely.
And this is how like BDSM and spirituality can blend, is with intention. And I just love that you said that. So just wanted to highlight that a little bit more.
Thanks. Also, like, one of my favorite books ever is Man Who Fell in Love with the Moon, and like there's a big chunk of the book devoted to the asshole being a portal. And like, and I really also, that really resonated, and I was like, this makes so much sense.
Yeah.
For me.
Can you expand on that just a little bit more?
I just think that like the energy that can be made in any sexual situation or any like BDSM or like even vanilla sex, like the energy that you're taking and creating can be so otherworldly and like connect you to like, yeah, spirit. Like some people experience orgasm as like this thing that's like just this thing that your body does that feels good. But like, with practice, with like being able to like take time and patience and intent, and the more intention you invest into something, like cooler and better it is. And like that's same for any kind of sex. And in particular, like in sessions that I've like participated in and done myself, and like, the more like, yeah, just the feel it's like so indescribable, like the feeling that can happen, like even when you're not being penetrated and being the penetrator, like that whole feeling that happens where you all are just like vibrating. You're like, this feels so good. This feels so good. It's like the ability to be present in like feelings and emotions, the ability to be present and then just feel like you're fucking high, which is, we have all those chemicals in our brain and our body for a reason. It's like for enlightenment. It's to like better understand the world around us through our bodies. And like,
yes. And
like, yeah. And it also, assholes take patience. Like opening up an asshole takes patience. It takes time. It takes like, you can't just like stick something in there. I have this like one like person that I've seen a couple of times, and like I don't see him anymore because he insists, and he doesn't practice at home, but insists that I can put my whole fist in him in like an hour and a half, and doesn't want to spend any more time. And I'm just like, this is dangerous. And like, you're frustrated because you want my whole hand in you. But like people who do that are,
they train. Yeah.
They train.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a huge misconception that the internet has brought.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's
the access to like what people see online. It's like, these people are professionals. You are not a professional.
No. And if you're not practicing and training at home with, dilators or at least like plugs of increasing sizes, you're not going to get to that stretch. Like you might break open and you might tear, and that's not fun. That's not pleasurable.
Yeah, it's not something I want to do to somebody.
No.
And I think that's, yeah, it's an interesting thing to also like, just segueing into another conversation about portals, is like the thing that like time, like that's something that also has changed in like my journey, is like also the quality of people I see is different, and I think that's also an interesting journey, I think, for every dominatrix, like where you begin and like what who you initially see, how you figure out how to how you figure out what you actually like yourself. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And like, I feel like that's one thing that the internet has granted us, is like the ability to like be in more more authenticity. Like I have like over because of the internet have been able to like access and like showcase like more of like what I actually like, what I'm actually like, and how I want to apply that to like what I'm actually doing and getting paid for, you know, which is really cool. So like now there's a lot of things I used to do that I just don't care to do anymore. And things that I like was surprised that I like to do, and like through self-discovery in this job, you know, and it's been such a gift. And that's not everyone's experience, and I feel pretty lucky that that's been mine. It's like getting to start somewhere in like kind of this really clunky kind of way, honestly.
Yep.
In my taffeta polka dot dress. And like be refined and like artistically, creatively, spiritually, emotionally, and like sexually, like just like I'm so different from where I started, and like getting to meet people who are interested in that same journey now, like that's happening for me more and more, or like getting to be with people to like a certain point in their self-discovery, and then watching them either fly off and fly away or try new things or see new people, or you know, and like being a part of that has been really special. And like and getting to also decide now like in my life like who I want to see, the kind of sessions I want to take. Like, no, I'm not really interested in that. Like someone else is better suited to be with you. That's going to be more authentic. Like, I'm not going to have fun doing that, you know?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Totally. I think I mean, I'm in the same place as you, where I've been practicing for a little over 10 years. And in the beginning, I was more of a service top. You know, I was just like, oh, this looks fun. I'll do this. You know, okay, I'll do whatever you will ask me to do. You know, like I'm treating this as a job, and I'm gonna do whatever, you know, whatever dominatrix role play you want to project onto me, I'll do it. Yeah. And that was fun, and it was educational, and I value that time, but it's certainly not where I'm at anymore. And there's tons of activities that I'm not interested in anymore. And there's also people and energies that don't align with mine anymore. Yeah. And I think that is that comes from years of, you know, cultivation and being like, I really like this thing. I want more of this, and I don't like this thing. I'm going to put a boundary around it, and then just kind of the refining and also the honing of my own energy and who I am as a dominant, as a kinky person, as a pervert, you know. Yeah. Excuse me. So I think, you know, I completely relate to you on that. And it leaves more room for newer people, newer dominants, or newer, you know, service tops or whatever providers to do all the different things, because there's always going to be
there's room for everybody.
There's never going to be a shortage of submissives or clients or fetishists to play.
Yeah, and there's not, you know, and I think there's no shortage of like brilliant people like who are in this industry who are doing I can't think of two dominants or dominatrices or providers who are alike at all, and I think all of our journeys are also really, really different. I tried all kinds of stuff like in this industry. I was an escort for 8 years alongside being a dominatrix. Like I was a dominant escort, and that was, you know, wonderful until it wasn't my cup of tea anymore. And then I was like, I'm closing this portal. I'm done. Like I don't like I've like had so much, and I like again like I would say like that's not everyone's experience, but like I didn't have anything extremely traumatic ever happen to me in that realm, and I also really loved playing with even taboo things within this industry, where like a lot of dominatrixes don't believe that like having sex with your submissives or sex with clients that's like wrong, or that's like not part of like what we're doing, you know what I mean? Or that's not like, that can't be a part of what's happening. And like I liked pushing that envelope. Like I love I've done that my whole life, is like push the envelope, and I really really love doing that too. I did massage, which I was terrible at for a very brief time. Like I've done like all kinds of aspects. I've tried to do porn. It wasn't, really my thing either. Like making videos is like, I could do this, like have a conversation, but you put a camera in front of me and I'm just like, this is terrible. I don't know what to do with myself. It's entirely like it's an uncomfortable space for me. But I like the different ways that like how different people are like expressing themselves differently within this umbrella of dominance and submission, and like
Yeah, I think that's, we're moving toward, or we're already in the age of Aquarius, where individuality is valued above the whole like self-sacrificing, be with the herd mentality. And I definitely see a lot of multidimensionality amongst our peers, and it's really beautiful. It's like, yeah, there's like doms who just do mommy play, and they're amazing at it, and I'm definitely not one of them. And so if you are somebody who is into mommy play, you would go to them, right? Exactly.
I'm mommy. I like
yeah.
That's something I really love to do.
That's great.
One of my favorite clients is like my son, and like gets in trouble and gets spanked all the time. And like that is like one of my favorite like role plays, is to be mommy and you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that one's so relatable for a lot of people too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that there are so many like spaces, again, that like really ties into different archetypes. There's so many archetypes to inhabit, and like things to play with and experiment with, and I'm just excited I made it here 10 years later, and like get to like be more in my authentic desire in the work that I'm doing in like many different ways. It feels really serendipitous, honestly.
Yeah.
Despite the pandemic, despite like the many like platform shutdowns, and like being at this like really interesting intersection of like extreme sexual freedom, like available for everybody, and this other like hand of like extreme conservatism, like warring with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, we're at a very interesting time where there's a lot of opposing forces, and I think it's an even more critical time for us to be our most authentic self, so that we can, we can be on the side of truth. Because there's a lot of delusion too, and I don't know that those are necessarily sustainable ways to live, or mental states to dream, but it's definitely like a losing. It's a grasping for control and losing control kind of delusion. So we have to just keep pushing into our own authentic selves, and helping other people also to strip away those delusions and to be their most authentic selves too. And I think, like mommy play sometimes is kind of taboo for some people. Like for some grown-ass man to be like, oh, like I'm into this. Like all his friends, I'm sure, would probably laugh and make fun of him and whatever.
That's the really great thing about, again, also about my job, is like I am such a curious person, and part of that is like getting to see people be their most authentic selves, like from the beginning, like from the start of what I like, that first session till now, like getting to just be with people while they get to really be themselves. And a lot of those people don't have any other space to be themselves. Like I get to live like this all the time. Like I'm me like 24/7. And then I get to be with people who have to hide, who have to be in the closet, or who have to like can't be themselves. And it feels incredibly special to get to be like with people and watch that like blossom and bloom. Like that feels incredible to me.
It does. It's such a gift. There really is no other place for people with deviant desires to express those. So I think that our jobs, our craft is extremely valuable.
Absolutely. I agree. And like the way that I've like had like, it's just been like this really big opportunity for me to grow, a really big opportunity for me to like have a really important outlet for like what is like my most dominant self, which would drives other people maybe insane if I would let loose on the world without any outlet. You know, like even just personal self-discovery, like personal sexual self-discovery. Like I met my sissy who started out as my client, who's now my personal property / like an actual relationship that I have that's important. You know what I mean? And the process of like that evolving into something really, really special, like a really special and important relationship for me, like sexually, like mentally, emotionally, in this way that I didn't even know that I like little frilly underpants with the little frilly skirt and the little socks. And like, I didn't even know I liked that, you know? I didn't know I liked that coming in. And like, now that's like an actual like piece of like my sexuality that's authentic. And also just like in the ways that like that's informed, like again, integrating that to my larger life. Like my talking on the phone with my mom today, and I was like, my sissy's coming to DomCon, and and she was like, oh, that's so wonderful. Like the progression of all that, like getting to like actually integrate like that person into my life as authentically has been like such a really like my sissy Christmas. Like it's been a really amazing journey for me. Like in that, like that my family knows about that.
Yeah, that's really awesome that your family knows, and your mom's like, "Oh, great!"
Yeah, she's like, "That's so fun." She was so excited, you know. Those were just like starting out, like kind of in this like weird, in my clunky shoes to like of like not understanding myself fully to like I have like a personal property person that is mine, and that like you know it's different, and I get to like express that in every it has pushed me to want to express myself in every like expansive way possible.
Yeah.
That's what this like culmination of me doing this is like has been really expansive for me.
Yeah, well, we need more people like you to just be themselves in this world, because you give permission to other people to also just be themselves just by you doing that.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you if you have any future projects or travel announcements or anything like that coming up. And while you're speaking on those things, I want to also open up the questions for our audience. So any audience people want to ask questions, now is your time.
Great. Future announcements. Well, currently, I'm just doing so much collaboration with Penelope Waters, who's just a brilliant mind to work alongside. And we're kind of, well, hasn't been like entirely announced, but we're kind of birthing a bigger, better Dungeon Stormcloud in the future, hopefully. And currently we're in a smaller space than I initially was, so that, you know, the pandemic happened and like we weren't seeing anybody. So like downsizing, and now we're going to be hopefully moving into something a little more exciting, which is really, really, really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
For me, like that's like a big thing that's coming up that I haven't been talking about very much, but mostly just because I don't know what it looks like entirely yet. We don't know, but like, yeah, just my collaborations with Penelope Waters, and I hope everyone just kind of pays attention to the internet about that, like us working together, because she's so much fun and so brilliant.
Awesome.
And here in New Orleans, we're gonna dominate everything. No, I'm just kidding. But that, and just I don't know, that's like the big thing that's coming up. And I don't have any travel plans, honestly. I kind of got really tired,
Mm-hmm.
you know, going all over the country for the last 2 months over the summer. So like, if you want to see me, you have to come to New Orleans.
Yeah, and it's worth it.
Yeah, that's it. And I'm, you know, hoping to like learn how to use the internet a little better and make content. And so, but yeah, for the time being, I'm here. I'm collaborating with Penelope Waters, and I'm really excited for how our relationship is growing and expanding, and excited to showcase that together.
Awesome. So we've got a question here from B Dan Fran. Let's see. Question 1. Do either of you have advice for new doms whose clientele is looking for body worship or tease and denial that crosses into other lines of sex work? What do you mean by other lines of sex work?
Applied means escorting. I think the really big piece of advice is, you have advice for new doms whose clientele is looking for body worship or teasing. Like, you have advice. I think that all you can do is like honor your boundaries. That's the big advice I have for new doms, is to be like really clear, like really think about what it is that you do or do not want to do. On like, does it sound exciting or not?
Mm-hmm.
Like, also, like, the big thing that I learned is like, don't necessarily attach a price to like what you do or don't want to do, because someone will pay it, and then your boundaries are going to feel like they're crossed.
Right.
And also for clients, read through people's websites thoroughly and see what they're offering. And read through and see what they're offering, and don't ask for things that it's very obvious that they're not offering, that's, and like for newer doms who are doing that, like, just be solid about your boundaries. Like, think about what you really want to be doing and don't want to be doing, and just like honor those boundaries as best as you can. As somebody who like really slid on my boundaries back and forth and like really went the whole spectrum of it, and now I don't do that, like, because it doesn't excite me anymore. Just honoring your boundaries is the big thing.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%, and that's what I would have said as well. New doms, you should think about what you're willing to do and what you're absolutely not willing to do, and stick to that. And then there's probably some gray area things that are like, oh, I would try this, and I might be into this. So, there should be like a yes and a no and a maybe, and the no's should be like definitely
honor your no's. Your no's. Get excited about your yeses,
mm-hmm.
and like really listen to that like inner self. And one of the best advices that I got from my friend who was 6'80", who like retired that for herself too later on in her career, was just like, any price tag you attach to something, someone will pay it. And if you're hoping that price tag will keep someone from like wanting it, then that's your answer. No,
Yeah. We've got another question here from Bree. Been meaning to ask the whole show, where did you get your mug?
My friend, he
can you show us the mug?
Yeah.
All my friends are hookers.
And it says okay because it's from Oklahoma. So there's a town called Hookers, Oklahoma.
Oh, that's so funny.
And so my friend was traveling through there and bought me like a bunch of like travel stuff from Hookers, Oklahoma.
I love it.
And I know I specifically chose this for this because I was like, it's true.
Yeah. Well, I knew it was not about my mug because, I found this in the trash.
That's a really nice mug. I have a really, really intense mug collection and like teacup collection. So,
all right. So we've got another question from Bobcat, and then we'll take one more question after this. What advice would you give yourself just starting out if you could go back and talk to your younger dom self?
Wow, that's a good question. I actually meant to think about that, but then forgot to think about it because I was like, I figured that might be a question that would come up. What advice would I give my younger dom self? I don't know. I would have invested a little more earlier on, like into my looks, and that's just like something that's kind of like maybe vain or something, but I would have like invested more into like buying a corset, or like buying the equipment that I really wanted instead of just like, making do or being cheap. Like there's two pieces of advice that I got from two different people. One person, I cannot remember exactly who it was, and maybe I'll remember and then I'll like post it or something. But they were like, your first like big gig, go out and buy yourself a nice piece of lingerie and go out and buy like the thing that you want to look like, and then go out and like, or buy that piece of equipment that you really want, like just invest like immediately, like be immediately investing in things that you want instead of, waiting, that for the day that you're going to accumulate this big amount of money to buy everything.
Mm-hmm.
That was like my like thing, is I just didn't know how to invest in myself and like invest in like my desire. So like it's an investment, and like you don't necessarily need it. Like I think there are people who are dominants, they don't need a damn thing. They can be in their jeans and have their hands, and that is it, and that's like plenty. But like if like I'm a Taurus, I like want stuff.
Yeah.
I want I want a dungeon. I want all white. I want plants. Like I want that stuff. I have that. But like invest that. And then the other piece of advice, which goes hand in hand, and that was from my mother. She came over to my house, and I had like these like my black pleasers just kind of like on a shelf, like on display. And then she was just like, "Oh, is that what you wear to work?" And I was like, "Oh no, I just like work barefoot. I wear the same black cotton dress every single time, whatever." And like, and she was just like, "I didn't raise you to be half-assed." And I was like, okay. And then I started getting my nails done, and I started like buying nicer makeup that didn't make my skin break out. And I started like buying the fetish wear that I actually wanted that makes it fun. Like I'm a showboat and an extrovert, and I just didn't invest in like my desires in the way that I was exciting. And now I do.
Yeah.
But before, that's my younger dom self would say, is like invest in like the things that you want for yourself that make you feel excited about doing the job.
I think it's worthwhile because it's not just frivolous, superficial stuff. It's stuff that makes you feel good about yourself, and it's effective. Like wearing the things that feel good on you and look good on you boosts your confidence. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like you are a person who works with her appearance, and you have your appearance is what draws people in. So you are investing in yourself and in your business when you do that.
And it also draws in the people that you want to see.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, just taking a picture in like my black cotton thing, like it brings in a certain demographic, and like learning to like be like, okay, like the all white look that's like kind of like my signature, is like wearing all white and having the white dungeon. It does bring like this lightness to the thing that I do, this lightheartedness, and I therefore it calls in more lighthearted people who are interested in BDSM, like, or whatever, like these little tiny details that I invest in for myself that I've like that are called they're basically what you invest in is what's going to come your way.
Absolutely. Okay, we've got last question here, also from Bobcat, who asks, great questions. What's some of the most rewarding aspects of being a dom for you?
One of the most rewarding aspects of being a dom for me is the freedom, the multi-pronged freedom of life. Like I'm like totally free to do whatever I want. I can make my schedule however I want. I have freedom to move around the country, the world, however I please, like with a schedule. I like the schedule. I like the money. I like the creativity that I can invest. Like I get to like use my mind to like create and do and like create a scene. I also like that it's like this entire realm where I get to still be an adult and play and have toys. Yeah. And it's like this big, super duper, like intense inner child thing. Like I grew up pretty broke and like didn't get to always have everything I wanted in this way. And like, it's this kind of this weird inner child healing thing where I'm like, I get to have what I want and like get to like demand what I want and like get to like repair some of these more intense traumatic things that have like happened in my life through this work. And that's just been like, yeah, that's just been like what's been like so great is like the expansive freedom that it has like in the realm of like money and time, and then also like the expansive freedom to like express myself, like I was saying earlier, like as a feminine person. Like I didn't know how to be feminine because I was just like a scrappy little punk kid. And like that felt it gave me permission. It was like a portal. It gave me permission to like be more myself. And that's like kind of what it continuously informs, is like being able to live a life more authentically and to be myself more deeply.
Yeah.
Love the most about
Amen to that. And I really wish that more people could see that about this amazing career choice and this craft. I mean, clearly not every pro dom feels this way, but and certainly not every sex worker feels this way, but sex work and pro doming offers us the opportunities to craft it this way. So
Yeah.
I think that if you take that opportunity and you make it into what you want it to be, and you're not like ruled by the money, then it's going to be everything that you hoped and wish, and maybe even more.
Absolutely.
And the money will come.
That is the other thing, is like being like patient about that. Like this is also capitalism, and it takes 2 or 3 years to build a business. You know, it takes 2 or 3 years to build clientele. It takes a couple years to figure out what you want to actually do and like how that all looks, you know?
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
that's like, I'm a deeply impatient person, and that is another thing that being a dominatrix has like taught me, is like intention and patience, and like the like letting things happen in the fullness of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and giving yourself the time to acquire these skills, because they're not instant. You know, you don't start. Yeah, you have to cultivate.
Like, you can't just grab a cane and start beating the shit out of somebody and like without like any knowledge and or whatever. I mean, you can if you want, but like, you know,
they might not come back.
Yeah.
But
I just think that there's so many things you can do, and I do really appreciate that. I think there's a lot of controversy. Last thing I'll say, I know we're running out of time, is that there's a lot of controversy about like women, queer people, all kinds of people turning to sex work like as like a form of like work, and it's just like it's such a legitimate form of work for different reasons for different people, and like having the ability to like the ability to take care of oneself is really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In this world, especially right now, and it is really precious to me. And
it's definitely one of those. It's a craft and it's a career that isn't super easy, but it has a lot of rewards, including community if you choose it. So I definitely agree with you on that. Like, there's a place for everybody in sex work.
Pretty much, if you want, like, you can be here if you want to be here. And also, like, I think that, like, lastly, most importantly, like, there is so much expansiveness in this job and in like meeting people here, and it's just interesting too. That's it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's just like plain out, just like super interesting work.
Yeah, absolutely. It's never old. It never gets boring to me. Okay. So Mistress Jade Thunderstorm, I just want to thank you so much for sharing this much of yourself with us. And it's been such a pleasure to hear you tell your story and to explain all the wonderful things about yourself.
Thank you so much for listening and inviting me. It's been like such a treat to finally meet you and talk to you.
It's been a total pleasure. And I also want to thank our audience members for being so polite and asking such wonderful questions, and also just showing up every Monday. I do have a small announcement. I'm going to be co-hosting a CFNM Goddess Tea Party in New York City on October 24th, which is a Sunday. So my co-hosts are Lucy Sweetkill and Mistress Trinity. If you would like more information, please visit my Twitter, which is at Dia Dynasty on Twitter. And I will definitely give you more information through that, or you can just find the post that has the party information and click on that. So thank you again. It's been a wonderful start to the week to be able to talk to you and listen to all of your experiences. And Mistress Jade, you are a total delight. Thank you so much for your time.
Have a really wonderful day. Thanks for everyone tuning in.
Yes, thank you again, and goodbye.